Good evening, hello, and welcome to our Thursday night Bible study, which we have titled this year "Words to the Wise." We are on the path to becoming wise people, or
We hope.
we're hoping to. We're on that journey, so we are claiming it that we are wise by following these instructions. But before we dig in, my name is Isai. This is my friend, a fellow associate, Pastor Jillian, and here at the West Covina Hills Seventh-day Adventist Church. And whether you are a member or just perusing YouTube, we're glad you're here. We are today in Proverbs 16. We've been going through Proverbs in the wisdom literature, and today we are on Proverbs 16. So before we jump right in, dive in to this gem of a proverb, Pastor Jillian, would you pray for us?
Of course. Lord God, thank you so much for not just leaving behind the things we need for salvation, but the things that will help us just live happier lives. Speak to us the things we most need to hear in this text. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. So Proverbs 15, if you were tuning in last week, Proverbs 15, was talking a lot about the wise man and the wicked man, the decisions that both lead to, whether that's laziness or destruction or pride, but also so it's a warning really of like what that path leads to. And in this proverb, I really see how the wise teacher is really taking us to now seeing what wisdom is leading us to as we are following, we're followers of God. We are following God's direction, and how wisdom helps us to also follow in God's path.
All right.
So Proverbs 16, we're starting off with verse 1, says, "The preparations of the heart belong to a man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits. Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. The Lord has made all for himself. Yes, even the wicked for the day of doom. Everyone proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though they join forces, none will go unpunished. In mercy, in truth, atonement is provided for iniquity, and by fear of the Lord, one departs from evil. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Better is a little with righteousness than vast revenues without justice. A man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps." So I want to stop there. I know this was quite a few verses, but
it's an unusually big chunk for you, man.
Verses 1 and 9 almost seem like bookends to me. The ways of the Lord belong to a man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord.
Right.
And a man plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. I think about this this really also speaks to, predestination, that idea that God is directing every little thing that we do, and we are helpless to be to have any say in it. It's telling us here that we can prepare in our hearts, and we might even think, I think in verse 2 it says, we might even think that our ways are pure, but God really knows. God really sees it all. God weighs it out, whether it is really pure or not.
He knows what's up.
He knows, yeah. He knows even when we're justifying, if I can do this, I can still get away with something, and I'm going to plan in my life just to have a little bit of a leeway, gray area, morality. I can get away with this. Whatever it is that we try to justify. And we really can tend to overestimate our own righteousness. God knows. He knows when we are trying to be self-righteous, and God evaluates. God recognizes our own motives, and he evaluates them, not just our actions. Sometimes we think that we can, if we just didn't do something bad, but really we also see that God even evaluates our thoughts and our motives behind what we do. So sometimes we can think we do the right things, but we're doing them for the wrong reasons. And when we have spiritual maturity, when we recognize how God works in our lives, we're also recognizing that we need to have humility in our lives. We need to have humility in the way that we recognize even our plans and our decisions, our goals, all of this. When we give it to God, it's a lot better for us. I just like how also in verse 3 he says, commit your works to God, to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. Even your thoughts need to be established by God. So it's not that he controls everything, even down to your thoughts, but even surrendering to God, Lord, these are my thoughts, but you see the big picture.
Right.
You see more than you see the other side. Maybe it's a relationship. You see the other side. You see what this decision will lead me to, what my work of my hands is going to lead to. So I'm going to commit it to you. I put it in your hands, but I'm taking these steps. I'm taking these actions, and Lord, purify my thoughts. We are so we have so much bad motives sometimes. We don't even. We're not even honest with ourselves sometimes.
You know, you're getting back to that idea of predestination you brought up.
Yeah,
this is a whole bracket of things that's about plans. Yes. And what I kind of like about it is that it shows that we do still have free choice up to a point.
Absolutely.
But there's still someone who's smarter than us, who sort of is providing guardrails to keep us from going too far off the deep end.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, there's a nice halfway point between predestination, every moment determined, and free will. It's like, okay, we're sort of meeting halfway here.
Yeah.
We have choices, but there's also a safety.
There's guardrails.
There's a safety guardrail here.
And I love that because he's guiding us. We're not also just making our decisions and being reckless, and he's also keeping us from that recklessness, that wickedness, where selfishness can lead to terrible things. So I like that in verse 3 again, just to emphasize, he establishes our thoughts. So he is the one that is guiding us, even if it's just our thoughts. I want this, or I like this, I want this, or this is my plan. He's the one that establishes it. So whether it's, because I think a lot of times we think by our own bootstraps, by our own abilities. But even when we are committing, which really is showing that we are putting our burdens onto God, we surrender everything. We're giving it up to Him, and He's the one that has the final say.
Yes.
That final say to say, yes, I'll give that to you, or yes, this will happen. God's the one that's guiding. More than just us being strategic and planning and putting things in place. He's the one that does that. So for us that follow God, it's such a relief to say, God is the one that is ultimately in control. I can plan things and I will put them in His hands. But it also says, even the wicked, or the Lord has made all for Himself, even the wicked for the day of doom. Even if we aren't trying to follow God, God has created all of the earth. God has created each of us. God has created everything on earth. So God is our creator, and He has made everything. And even when sin came into this world, He has created plan of salvation. He has created the plan to get rid of sin. And even evil can't derail His plans. Yeah.
Something that I'm seeing in here as you're talking about this, and my eyes are skipping towards later in the chapter. It seems like this chapter is bringing out a lot about how God cares about justice.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time talking about God's mercy as an expression of His love, and that is very, very true. All of us are a hot mess. Each of us is a hot mess. But there also has to be a certain point where, okay, this one will not play well with others and is beating up all the other kids. Will you make them stop already? And there's something I see in this chapter is how God cares about limiting human evil.
Yes, absolutely.
So that it doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah, that there will be a doom for it. There will be an end for it.
And it's not malicious. It's more about keeping everybody, living their best lives possible.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a good point. That it's also even though he has allowed sin to exist, evil to exist, it doesn't mean that it's dominating over evil to the point where dominating over good, where there is no good at all. Of course, we know that there will be, and we're hoping for the end of evil. But even when there is arrogance and pride, and even in verse 5, there's pride. Even if it seems like it's not unpunished, like you were saying, there is a plan for either that punishment, the end of it. So God's also wanting us to have a change of behavior in our lives that leads to good things. And that's all, I think, even the barriers, the parameters that he's leading in our lives, that if we have things that we want, but it comes from a place of pride or selfishness, he's gonna redirect, he's gonna guide us in a different direction, because he wants good things for us.
Yeah.
I think these verses have really been something that has really helped me navigate in life, because I think a lot of times when we have plans for our lives, sometimes we want to think about that 5-year plan or 10-year plan of, of course we think about careers, or we think about by this time I'm going to have a spouse and kids and a home and X amount of cars and so many things, right? And when those things don't happen, or the job interview doesn't go well, the doors that we want open don't get opened, it's disappointing, it's frustrating.
Right.
But this has always been something that has helped me just to think about the big picture of life, that we can make our ways, we can make our plans, and if it does please God, God always makes a way. And I think of another verse, I think it is in Proverbs, but God will give us the desires of our heart, but he ultimately is the one that is leading. So
right.
I love that idea of surrendering our plans, because whatever we want to make of life, when we surrender it to God, it's in God's hands, and we are a lot more humble about it. He also helps us to recognize his place in our lives. He helps us to see that it's not about us just getting what we want, but also being humble to God.
Right.
I also really loved verse 8, where it says, better is a little with righteousness than vast revenues without justice. And what you were talking about justice, that we can want a lot of things and hoard a lot of things, but maybe it ends up being about hurting people along the way, not being kind, or climbing that ladder while stepping over other people. And yes, we'll have that extra income, but at what cost, right?
Right.
So he says, better is a little with righteousness, good living, good relationships, a good relationship with God, that we're submitting ourselves to him. And it's better to live that lifestyle than a lifestyle that is pursuing more, getting more, and
more.
Without having justice, without having good relationships. So I think what it comes down to is, even if our God does allow us to have plans, he allows us to have ideas, have creativity, have ambitions, have goals, but God's the one that guides us, whether it is to that point or to a better place, but God's the one that takes us to somewhere better. And when we trust in God, we are allowing him to direct our plans to what his will is for our lives. Verse 10, picking up, it says, divination is on the lips of the king. His mouth must not transgress in judgment. Honest weights and scales are the Lord's. All the weights in the bag are his work. It is an abomination for kings to commit wickedness, for a throne is established by righteousness. Righteous lips are the delights of kings, and they love him who speaks what is right. As messengers of death is the king's wrath, but a wise man will appease it. In the light of the king's face is life, and his favor is like a cloud of the latter rain. This is really talking about a good leader, someone
Right.
that is a wise king, a good leader. He rules with wisdom, with discernment. And of course, when we see the word king, we want to think about like the politicians of our days, the people, the president, the governor, the people that are in those places
Right.
of leadership. But even the place that God has put us in, whatever, our workplace.
We're all kings of
our home.
something.
Yes. We're all leaders in some capacity. Someone looks up to us. Someone looks at us for good leadership. And when we recognize that with humility, it leads us to have good carry that with good moral responsibility. We recognize that it is something that we should treat with good care, with good justice, with good mercy, as we were saying earlier.
Right.
So earlier we were seeing that God is the one that has the scales, and I like that it brings it back up. He says, honest weights and scales are the Lord's. So God is the one that weighs. God's the one that is judging what fairness looks like, what good morality, good ethics looks like. It also really just shows to me that even, what we consider justice is not up to us. It's up to God. What we see as good ethics, good morals, it's not ours, it's God's. It belongs to God. The honest weights and scales are the Lord's. It belongs to God. A lot of times, of course, we want to be the ones to have the say of what is balanced, what is fair, what is right. And even that, we need to submit it to God. We need to submit to Him even our view, our thoughts of justice, of kindness. It needs to be from Him, because even that is something that He judges. So He cares about. It really shows God cares about how we treat others, how we do business with others, how we lead. Yes.
And something I'm seeing here is that it's showing two sides of the leadership coin. How to be a good leader, but also how to interact with one that may not be so good.
That's a good point. Yes.
There's a lot of wisdom here about dealing with
thank
different
you for
layers
that.
of authority in your life, and when, one is going a bit off the rails, as it were.
Yeah, like the idea that a wise ruler will value truth, will value submitting to God, will value being a good influence towards others. And really, leadership can either bless or destroy, can be something that can bring wrath or could bring life.
Yeah.
So it's something to recognize that, wherever it is that God has also directed our path towards, we should use that, that place, that space that God has placed us in, literally, and recognize that leadership that He's given us, something that we should also be good stewards of, submit to God. It's not just about us having a position, but also that we give that to God.
The verse in this section that is staring me down is verse 15. When a king's face brightens, it means life. His favor is like a rain cloud in spring. I love all of my ministry leaders, but sometimes I'm just grumpy for reasons that have nothing to do with them. And it's a good reminder to just check the kind of energy I'm bringing into the room,
yes. Oh, that's a good reminder. Absolutely.
How much leaders set the emotional climate of the room.
The excitement, the life that we radiate from our faces. Oh, I love that. That's a good self-reflection. I love that. Verse 16 just really ties into this. How much better to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding is better chosen rather than silver. Excuse me. So this one's also just one of that always stands out to me. Because naturally I think of, well, what about the bills? What about all of the things that I want to do that require more money? And it brings that in perspective of it's better to have wisdom than gold. The shiny things, the flashy things, the things that I wish I had, all of that can be lost also. All of that can just fade away. And wisdom is way more sustainable. Wisdom is something that will even carry me into the next thing that in God's path. So I think from that perspective, it's so much better to get wisdom, hold on to it, because gold will stop being shiny.
Yes.
Better to choose understanding than to have silver. So if we have wisdom, we're having something that is so much more lasting. If we have silver, it's something that will also fade, but understanding is something that we should choose. I just think that's something so like puts it into a much better perspective than just having something shiny for a moment that won't last. The highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He who keeps his way preserves his soul. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. This is such a classic one.
Right.
This was one that so many times would memorize this for Sabbath school, summer camp. But this is such a good one. Pride comes before the fall, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And maybe it's been overquoted to you, maybe you've heard this, but it's such a true statement. Pride comes before destruction. And I think it leads back to that self-reflection. Am I being proud? Am I being prideful? Am I being proud in this moment? Is my attitude one of pride? Because it really does, whatever that timeline is, it does lead to destruction.
Right.
However high of a pedestal you put yourself in, it's just a bigger fall.
Right.
And I think it's such an important thing to remember that it is important for us to remember that we need to have humility in our hearts. We don't need to have pride. I think there's always that line of like, I'm so thankful for something, or I recognize the things that someone else has done, and I'm happy for them, or I'm happy for the things that God has given to me. But it's really something that we need to be careful of having pride over our achievements, our things, because it is something that can bring harm even to ourselves in our attitudes. So it's one of those.
This smirk comes from thinking of something that happened on Survivor lately. That's a fantastic illustration of this, but would take way too long to tell.
Okay, she's got an illustration,
but it's too long. It's too long for this.
By the time this comes out, it will be like
very long gone.
Right?
As we're recording this, it's from like 2 weeks ago already.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is already gonna be
this is gone already.
News.
It's just making me laugh is all.
That's right. Yeah. So the best medicine to not have destruction is also to have humility in our hearts, to have to walk with humility.
Although, okay, without telling you everything that happened on Survivor, what actually happened is a great illustration of a dynamic we're all prey to. Pride goes before the destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Okay, sometimes we just enjoy sitting on the sidelines watching it happen. Ooh. And that itself is a form of pride. We're sitting on the sidelines eating the popcorn, looking forward to this very proud person being knocked down a peg or two. But it can revert back on us because that itself is a form of pride. And that's what happened on that episode of Survivor that made me go, oh, shoot.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And I think a lot of times we can see like, oh, you're being proud and oh, you're about to have your downfall, and we get ready for the popcorn. And that's such a good point that is something that we also, even in that point, we also need to be careful.
Right.
Verse 19, I love it. Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoils with the proud. And I think it really speaks to that. It's so much better to have a humble spirit, to recognize, even to be with the low of character, the low in where they stand to others. It's better to be humble with them than to just be also proud and dividing, let's take up the reward of the proud. Maybe it's that person's the proud one, but let's share in the benefit of that.
Well, I think of Tevye singing "If I Were a Rich Man." Da, 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 da.
Yep.
So the equivalent probably for me these days is people who have cars that aren't older than their high school diploma, that don't have dents in them, or nice houses and stuff, and I'm just all like, just remember. driving used cars is better for the planet. Just all this stuff. It's better. It's better to live humbly than to always be thinking about what you can't have.
Yeah,
and
really.
sometimes even having all of that stuff just isn't all it's cracked up to be.
No. There's all these other things that will come with that, but yeah, it's also recognizing the humility of and the gratitude that we can have with what we have, with the humility of where we are, and being content with that. So that's so powerful. Verse 20, he who heeds the words wisely will find good, and whoever trusts in the Lord, happy is he.
Aww.
The wise in heart will be called prudent, and the sweetness of the lip increases learning. Understanding is a wellspring of life to him who has it, but the correction of fools is folly. Oof. The heart of the wise teaches his mouth and adds learning to his lips. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and healthy to the bones. And health to the bones. I was just at our school, I was just going over this chapter, but I was like, this is the proverb I want to leave them with. Because it's so easy for us to say, like, tease or to say harsh words or to put
We
someone
both
down
work with
by
these
putting
students, and
ourselves up.
they have a habit of affectionately teasing each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can
be kind of vicious sometimes.
Fun, right, but it can be vicious, it can be harsh. And I think, I guess I've also been thinking a lot about communication in general.
Right.
That pleasant, I just love that visual that he gives us. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, like, ooh, so sweet, so good, so delicious that I want to keep eating it. It's that words can be so nourishing, words can bring life, words can be so uplifting, so life-giving, and it can even bring health, sweetness to the soul, healthy to the bones. That, I just think that, wow, like that just really like lifts up my soul. Really, we believe the soul is really our whole being.
Yeah.
So it's just all of, and if we really put that in perspective, the words that I can say to you, Jillian, can really bring you so much life that it's not just, wow, thank you. And just in my attitude, just in, receiving those words of positivity, but it leads to, I don't know, like a good rest of the day, a good positive outlook on life. And it can really snowball from there. And of course, the opposite is true, that, when we speak harsh words, it's bringing destruction. And we saw that in the verses earlier, that it leads to destruction and putting somebody down. But when we're lifting someone up, that visual, that it's sweet to the soul, healthy to the bones, it's something that is so nourishing, so life-giving, that it's not just, my brain receives it, I believe it, or my heart is so touched, but it's your whole being that is so moved towards life. It's restorative, it's nourishing, and it's really transforming the individual. And I think when we think about that, when we really see that, it's like, wow, what a beautiful thing it is that to really choose good words, pleasant words that will be nourishing, life-giving, so much more, just so much more beautiful, that leads to something better for others. Verse 25, there's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. I really want to pause at this one too, because I think about this comparison to verse 1 and verse 9. We can choose our ways, and God's the one that directs. God's the one that will move. God's the one that will direct and lead in our path. But we often think, oh, this is right. I'm going towards something good. I'm leading, making the decisions in my life that will lead to good things. But it's actually leading to evil. It's leading to destruction and to death. It's something that where our intuition isn't something that we can or should just trust, but we really should seek God's wisdom, God to lead, God to move in whatever we're deciding, in our decisions, in the path that we want to take, not just our feelings and the things that we think are good, but in also recognizing that if we don't surrender something to God, we might be leading towards destruction, and we need to put it in God's hands.
I recently finished listening to the memoir of Charlie Sheen, who at one point in media history was one of the great villains in the tabloids. And listening to his actual perspective was both more and less shocking than I expected it to be in different ways. But where he gets interestingly self-reflective towards the end is there were so many different times when if I had been smart, I would have gotten off this course. I would have gotten off this drug. I would have finished that other bad behavior, and I didn't take the life raft. And he just, he talks about just how much destruction can really happen in your life when you just follow instinct without reflection. And it's just such an interesting character study in what would happen if you ignored all the advice your parents, relatives, and youth pastors ever gave you and managed to live to tell the tale.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he lived to tell the tale because he's lived long enough to go, this, and this were all things that I was delusional about, that I didn't realize were doing me this much harm. And there's something to that,
You mentioned that, and it reminded me today, just notifications of news and things that I saw that the person that sold ketamine to Matthew Perry was convicted today. And it really reminded me, he was leading the spotlight life, but also was around people that didn't, were taking advantage, that weren't leading him in good directions. And it wasn't, even though he acknowledged, there's addiction, it wasn't something that was leading to a positive thing.
Yeah.
That's it. I think you're right. It's such a good warning for us that it can seem so attractive to want to have that lifestyle or those things, the status, but it does come with a cost.
Right.
Of if we choose to listen to good counsel, how much better it will recognize that.
And he's not repentant about everything that he did, which I also find really interesting. But he does identify the things that messed him up the most.
Wow. It's one of those things where you go through the hardship and you see it different after. Yeah.
Right.
Verse 26: the person who labors for himself, for his hungry mouth drives him on. An ungodly man digs up evil, and it is on his lips like a burning fire. A perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer separates the best of friends. A violent man entices his neighbor and leads him in a way that is not good. He winks his eye to devise perverse things. He purses his lips and brings about evil. These character traits are really telling to us how following a bad path, how going towards that bad direction is really creating laziness, following our own appetite, creating conflict, corrupt destroyed relationships because of our own speech, our own the way that we talk to our neighbors, our friendships, and that it also shows in those last couple of verses we just read that violence and manipulation, perverse thinking, it just brings about evil. It's not something that leads to good things. All of these character traits are going to lead to more and more destruction. Verse 31, the silver-haired head is a crown of glory if it is found in the way of righteousness. Oh, I hadn't read it in this version. In the version I read it earlier, gray hair is a crown of glory.
Yeah.
It is gained in a righteous life.
Hebrew being the funky language it is, either one might be true.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really going to start quoting that to those of you that have noticed my white hairs. You know who you are, but it's so funny. But
I was just noticing that because I was sitting next to you, but I think it brings something nice to your look, you know?
I'm gonna own it.
You
now in a
earn
different way.
each
Yes.
one.
There we go. I'm gonna not let that go to my head too much, but I'm just gonna see it in this perspective now because I love that. That sometimes I think what stands out to me about this is that especially in the culture that is trying to reverse age,
Right.
so much about just aging bodies. It is also a mark of following a righteous life. Maybe it comes with stress, maybe it comes with hardship, but it's also something to recognize that it can be a crown of glory. That I didn't just choose the easy way or the laziness and the just violence, but I'm gonna choose the path of righteousness. And even if it is
Well, and what this has to say about aging is really very beautiful. It's basically saying being old is nothing to be ashamed of. No. If you become advanced in years, own that.
Yes.
Don't try to hide it. The signs of aging are, marks of badges of honor from everything you've survived. I feel a little bit sad when my octogenarian, nonagenarian, centenarian friends are very sheepish about their birthdays. I'm all like, if I lived to such an age and still have my marbles like you, I want to own
amazing.
it. Shoot.
Yeah. And I think that is such an important perspective to have, that also for us that are younger than
Right.
them, that we can recognize that wisdom should, and I mean, we know that at least in our church it has, wisdom does increase with age. When you're following that path of righteousness, it's over time. And I think so often we want wisdom with youth, and we get it with we get wisdom when we're sometimes
There are some things
older
that you can
and
only
not as much
figure out by
energy.
how many times you've been around the sun.
Yeah, but I think that's something that we can recognize in others, that godly aging, wisdom, it's something that should be honored. It's something that we can recognize that we don't need to reverse, because it has led to increased wisdom. Even verse 32, closing out this chapter: he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirits than he who takes a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. And I think that's such a great way of ending this chapter. This chapter is so long, but it's so good. Again, we can prepare, we can make preparations, take steps to make everything that we want happen, and it's up to God. We can cast our lots, choose to make our bets, take a bet on ourselves, really take a chance, risk things. But every decision, the result of it, it's up to God. It's up to God. And that, whatever side we decide to lean on in that, it's really for us to first of all recognize that nothing is ever random here on earth. Nothing is ever just a coincidence. God is also allowing for us to step into the decisions, the desires that we have, or that He's really steering us in a different direction. We can try to take a chance, be random with the things that we want, but it's ultimately up to God. Chance is not the ultimate thing. It's really God. Nothing is outside of God's allowing, or God's desire for us to live in our path, to live and follow in a good path.
Yeah.
And I think, this proverb is just so rich. It's so good. I encourage to take some time to slow down and read it, but we only have so much time here.
We really do.
But this chapter has really taught us it's good, important for us to have wisdom, to plan humbly, to live in a righteous way, to speak graciously to others in a way that leads to life, and reject pride, and to trust in God's guidance. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Father in heaven, thank you for your guidance, that you are with us, Even if we might not see it, even if we might not recognize how it is that you're working, thank you that we can glorify you, that we can give you the praise and thanks, and as we submit every plan and decision in your hands. We love you, Jesus. Thank you for all you do for us. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.